Hello again, Sugar Geeks. Elizabeth Merrick here, and this is the Sugar Geeks Show. And today I am going to show you guys how I ship a cake, a display cake, for a cake competition. This is the example that I have here, and there is a cake in here. And as you can see, it's sturdy, it's in there. How did we do it? So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. I just want to make a couple of notes. This is the display cake. It is not made for eating. I do not know how to ship a cake for like a wedding. That sounds crazy. Display cakes can be made with real cake, like really dried out real cake, royal icing instead of buttercream or ganache or whatever you want to use, but it's real cake, but it's like very dry and not very edible. So it's very sturdy. There's a big difference between that and edible cake like you would have for a wedding. I don't know anything about that. This is actually Rice Krispie treats because the cake I did in Austin was actually all rice cereal and a structure and all that stuff. So if your cake show allows you to do rice cereal treats, I highly recommend that, or whatever kind of filler. Yeah, so don't confuse show cakes with real cakes. So let's get started. Gather your tools. I'm going to go over them in the next chapter here. And we'll show you how to get this done. Okay, so I have all of my tools out here, and I'm going to show you basically how I would ship this little puppy dog cake. And this is a display cake, so it's not real cake on the inside, but if you were to make this out of real cake, like for a competition, if it had to actually be real cake, then obviously you want to be using cake that's really, really firm, and using royal icing instead of buttercream and all that kind of stuff. But that's a different tutorial. This is just how to ship the cake. So my cake has a structure within it, the PVC pipe that is attached to the board with a flange, and then the cake is built around that PVC pipe so that if the cake turns over, it's not going to fall off or anything because it is attached to the board. So the first thing we do, obviously, is prep our cake so that it's properly attached to your board, however you do that. So move that out of the way. Next thing is to find a box. So this box here just happens to be the perfect size for my little puppy dog cake. So you want it to be as close to the size of your base. So my base board is 12 inches wide, and this box is actually 12 inches wide, so it's going to fit very snugly inside this box. Now you can get boxes at box supply stores or packing stores for like moving boxes and stuff like that, but I just happen to have this one. But for my cake for Austin, I actually had to go to actual specialty box store to like get the box that I needed because it was like really big. So we have that. And then I've got some, I guess this is acetate or something. It's like a flexible clear plastic. This is to make our little window in the box. And you could also use acrylic or, what's the other thing? I can't remember. Any like clear plastic that you can cut into, pretty thin, so that you can cut it into the shape that you need it to be, which is just a little window. We're going to need a ruler, X-Acto knife, some scissors, packing tape, a glue gun, and I think that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and start showing you how I prep the box for packing up the cake. Oh, also some styrofoam, a drill, and some screws. So right now I'm just covering the top of this box with some tape to just seal it closed. And then I'm measuring from the top edge of the box with a ruler 2 inches down, and then I'm making a line and then cutting with my X-Acto blade to cut off the lid of the box. So it just pops right off. It's very easy. And you can see that it's going to fit snugly and perfectly once we add our next piece. And before I do that, I'm going to just tape the inside of the box, just so that these flaps don't pop up and hit the top of my cake during transport. You could also glue these down if you really wanted to. And now I'm going to take a couple extra pieces of cardboard, and they need to be narrower than the lid so that they will slide into the box okay. So I'm just going to cut off the very ends, just like a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, whatever you need to do, just so that the boards are smaller than the inside wall. And then what we're going to do is just draw a line right down the center of the cardboard with just like your X-Acto knife, or you could like measure it out if you really want to be specific, but I just draw a line with my X-Acto blade, not going all the way through, just to kind of start the cut. And then I bend it, and then I push through all the way. That's like my cheater way of cutting cardboard. So do the same thing with the other one. And then I'm going to glue these pieces of cardboard to the inside wall of the lid. And this is going to just help our lid stay in place when we slide it back on. So just glue it on just like that, and just continue on with all of the edges. And sometimes I'll like tape the corners to each other just to be extra secure. Just depends on how big your box is and how strong you want it to be and all that good stuff. Just continue gluing until you have all of your sides glued on. So then you can see that once we have those little pieces of cardboard, it just slides right on. So this is the basics of our box here. Now we're going to take one side of the box and just slice down through one of the corners to create a doorway. And we're going to pull this piece down, and that's how we're going to slide the cake in and out. And we're also going to create a window by measuring in 2 inches from the side, from each edge, creating a square. And we're going to cut that out with our X-Acto blade, and then we're going to put in a piece of acetate. So I apologize, but my camera stopped recording and I didn't realize it, so I didn't get to show you this part of taping on the piece of acetate, but I'll just explain what I just took my acetate and my little cardboard square that I had cut out. I just like laid it on top of the acetate and made sure that I had a little bit of like space all the way around. And then I just traced a line. You can see right here. My cake is on the way. So I just like traced a line around the cardboard so that there was like a little bit overlapping so that the acetate was bigger than the square. And then I laid that over the hole, and then I just took pieces of tape and taped all the way across it. And I actually covered the whole piece of acetate in tape. It's just kind of like a reinforcement so that it was extra strong, because this could be laying against things. And you could even do tape on the outside too if you wanted it to be extra strong. For my really large cake for Austin, I actually used a piece of a really thin piece of acrylic instead of acetate, because it was like stronger than this acetate here. So that's just an option. And the way that I cut the acrylic was that I just scored it with a X-Acto blade, and then I bent it until it snapped, and that's how I made a square. It was kind of terrifying when it snapped, but that's how I did that. So again, I apologize, my camera cut out, but hopefully that explains how I put the window in that part. Okay, so our box is ready, and we're going to put the puppy into the box. And you may notice he does not have ears or a hat. And the reason for that is when you're, I wanted to say that when you're preparing a cake to go on a plane or shipping it or whatever, you don't want any delicate pieces sticking out that are going to get damaged during shipping, just in case it flips over or something. So prepare yourself to be you know, adding on those details once you get there. So once this doggy gets to where it's going, then I will add on the ears and I will add on the hat. And I'm going to just put a layer of saran wrap over the top of him to secure him to the board, just to make doubly sure that he does not come off the board. So now we're just gluing in a couple of pieces of styrofoam to the wall of the cake box on top of, you're not gluing it to the board, you're gluing it to the wall of the cake box, and that's just to keep the cake board from sliding upwards if it gets flipped upside down or something. So you could just do this on a couple sides of the walls. And now we're going to tape the door shut with our packing tape. On my Austin cake, I actually took some pieces of cardboard and bent them at the corners and actually taped those over the seam as well, just for extra support, but that's not absolutely necessary. It just depends on how strong your box is. I think you could probably also check this box. Like a box that's this small, as long as it's, you know, can fit in the overhead compartment, you could probably just check it. But you can see how it's nice and stable now. Now what we're going to do is add some screws, 4 screws. We're going to push them into the side until you find the edge of the cake board and just drill them right into the edge of the board, which obviously you would have to cover those holes later, so just plan for that. Just understand that this is part of the process of shipping a cake. Gotta cover up your mistakes. So because we've put the screws in there, you could also put one at the very bottom if you really wanted some extra support. But now you can see this cake can completely flip over upside down and it's not going to fall out. So no matter which way this cake goes, it is secure. Obviously you could not do this technique with a delicate wedding cake if it had string work or something on it, but you wouldn't want to do this with a delicate wedding cake. You'd want to do this with, I mean, you could do this with a wedding cake. Just put your delicate layers on once you get to the show. Give yourself a couple of days, arrive early, put on all your details once you get there, but you can do the bulk work and actually ship your, 90% of your cake this way and get it there, and then add on all of your details and stuff, once you get to the hotel room. My hotel room was like a mess. It was like a work zone. We had tons of little, isomalt stations and making sugar flowers and all kinds of stuff setting up. And we gave ourselves a couple of days to just put on all the details and things while we were there. So you can just plan for that. And actually worked out quite well, considering I won first place. So. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just label the outside of my box with some arrows. So that's it. That's how you ship a cake. And let me know if you guys have any questions. If you are a Patreon member, you can get the templates for how I put together this box and all the measurements and good stuff like that, plus some behind the scenes action on how I do the structures for the cake board and everything. And you can find all those links down below in the description area. Don't forget to subscribe, leave comments with all of your crazy questions, and I will ignore them. I mean, just kidding. I will actually answer them. So, thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys next time. So before we go, I just wanted to talk a little bit about my Austin cake that won first place at the That Takes the Cake Sugar Art Show and Cake Competition. This was what my cake looked like when I put it into the box. No details added, just my lady and the desk. And I wrapped it head to toe in saran wrap so that the cake would not come off the board. I mean, it has the support inside that's connecting the structure to the board, but on top of that, I also use the saran wrap to hold the cake, you know, securely to the board. And I had made this cake, you know, a week in advance so that it was nice and dry and firm, so it's not, you know, the fondant's not going to get damaged by the plastic wrap. And it's thin enough that you can still see inside. You can still tell that it's the lady that's inside underneath the saran wrap, so that TSA is not like, what is this? I don't understand what is in here. So I'm also talking about how I drilled the screws into the edge of my cake board, and then I had to cover that up with molding, like fondant molding over the edge of my cake board later so that I could cover up those screw holes. So after I prepped my cake in the saran wrap, I slid her into the box that we prepared, just like the smaller box that I showed you earlier. And this is what it looked like from the top with all the foam glued in on the sides. This is after we picked it up from the luggage station. This is unwrapping it. See, worked perfectly. No dents, no damage. And this is with all of the details added to the cake after we were done, you know, putting on the mirror, making the flowers, all of that stuff. I added piping to the back of the desk. I, you know, detailed all of the legs, back of the mirror. I added a letter to her hand so that it looked like she was holding a letter that she was reading. Just showing all of the detail in her draping and on her dress. It was all made from fondant. I did them in sections and then draped them onto her body. There's a hand-painted portrait of her husband on wafer paper. Some little details made out of fondant for the side of the dressing table. Some poppies that I made really fast in the hotel room. It's a little close-up of her earring that I made out of isomalt, and I got that from Simi Cakes, who makes amazing isomalt. I also did it for the ring and some pearls and stuff. You can see the link in the description underneath the video where you can get that isomalt. It works really good. I also used it for the mirror. That's a hand-painted portrait. And then that's my lady, who I thought was very beautiful.